our souls and our spirits, I think, grow and live on with the people that we've loved and who've loved us, and with people we've had impact on with our work or with in our daily experience.
Dolly Parton learned grit long before she ever tasted fame. Growing up in a one-room cabin nestled deep in the Smoky Mountains of East Tennessee, she understood scarcity before she could spell the word. Her parents raised 12 children with almost nothing, stretching every dollar until it screamed, and young Dolly carried the weight of responsibility on her small shoulders before most children learned to tie their shoes. Music became her escape, her direction, and eventually her salvation. She was crafting melodies before she could read or write, humming tunes at 5 years old while her mother sang mountain ballads that would shape her rhythm and emotional delivery for decades to come. By 7, she was practicing relentlessly on makeshift instruments fashioned from whatever the family could spare. Her mother's vocal sound imprinted itself deep in her auditory memory, becoming the foundation upon which she would build an empire of song. At 6 years old, she stood before her family's congregation at the Church of God and sang with a voice that silenced the room. 2 years later, her uncle gifted her a real guitar, and her fingers finally met the instrument that would carry her dreams. By 10, she performed on local radio programs, her voice cutting through the static and reaching ears that recognized something extraordinary in this mountain girl. At 13, she walked into a recording studio and cut her first single. That same year, she made her debut at the Grand Ole Opry, earning encore calls from an audience that sensed they were witnessing the beginning of something remarkable. But life in those hills held shadows alongside the music. In 1955, when Dolly was just 9 years old, her youngest brother passed away shortly after birth. The family processed their grief in silence, as mountain people often did, burying pain beneath daily survival. That loss shaped the tone of her music in ways that publicity could never manufacture. She learned to channel emotion through sound rather than statements, to let her songs carry the weight of words she could never speak. The day after her high school graduation, she boarded a bus to Nashville with everything she owned stuffed into cardboard boxes and paper bags. The city hummed with possibility, and she chased it with the hunger of someone who had known real want. Combine Publishing became her classroom for professional songwriting, and she arrived at their doors ready to learn everything they could teach her. She worked daily, writing and signing songs at 19, studying the craft with the intensity of someone who understood that talent alone would never be enough. During those early Nashville days, while washing clothes at a local laundromat, she crossed paths with a quiet man named Carl Dean. It was 1964, and something in his steady presence spoke to her. They married in 1966 in a small ceremony in Ringgold, Georgia, far from the prying eyes of the press that had already begun circling her rising star. The decision to keep their union private was deliberate, a boundary she would protect fiercely for decades. Carl chose to stay out of the spotlight entirely, and that choice became the foundation of a bond that would outlast nearly every marriage in the entertainment industry. Her songwriting intensified as the years passed. Rejection tried slowing her only once, in 1963, when doors slammed shut and voices told her she was not quite right for the sound they wanted. But backstage at the Opry, she met the legendary Johnny Cash, who offered advice she would carry like an anchor through every storm that followed. Trust your instincts, he told her, and she did. The career momentum resumed and never truly stopped. By 22, with the help of her mentor Porter Wagoner, she had written over 150 songs. One track in particular, Put Off Until Tomorrow, became a top 10 country hit for Bill Phillips and earned the BMI Song of the Year award in 1968. Success validated what she had always sensed about herself. Audiences began singing her lyrics back to her, and the charts followed where the people led. Her first mainstream spotlight arrived in 1967, when she joined the Porter Wagoner Show, a weekly television program that beamed her face and voice into living rooms across America. The exposure was massive, but so was the tension that grew over time. Wagoner had given her an invaluable platform, yet she hungered for creative control over her own direction. She pursued that control the same way she pursued everything else, one song at a time, building solo momentum with patience and precision. In 1973, She wrote Jolene in a single evening, the melody and lyrics pouring out of her with an urgency that surprised even her. The song hit #1 on the country charts and would go on to be recorded by more than 200 artists across genres and generations. The numbers proved her reach. The re-recordings prove her endurance. The following year, she penned I Will Always Love You as a farewell to Porter Wagoner, a goodbye wrapped in gratitude and heartache. The track topped the country charts in 1974 and climbed back to the summit in 1982 when she re-recorded it for the film The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. A decade later, Whitney Houston's legendary vocal performance carried a song into global consciousness, where it remains one of the most recognized love songs ever recorded. By 1980, Dolly had expanded into Hollywood. She starred in 9 to 5 alongside Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin, playing a sharp-witted secretary who helped take down her chauvinist boss. The film earned over $100 million worldwide and connected deeply with working women who saw their own struggles reflected on screen. Dolly wrote the title track herself, famously using the clicking rhythm of a typewriter to keep the beat. The song earned her an Academy Award nomination and proved she could conquer any arena she entered. But success could not shield her from suffering. Throughout the early 1980s, she battled chronic pelvic pain caused by endometriosis, a condition she managed privately until surgery became unavoidable. In 1985, doctors performed a partial hysterectomy, and the recovery period plunged her into a depression she would later discuss openly in interviews. She did not hide the emotional weight of losing motherhood as a possibility. That grief reshaped her perspective but never touched her career identity. She emerged from the darkness, changed but unbroken. In 1986, she channeled her resources and her heart into a new mission for her hometown. She invested $65 million to open Dollywood in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, transforming a small amusement park into a celebration of Appalachian culture and mountain heritage. Critics voiced their skepticism loudly. Jobs and tourism answered louder still. By 2023, 3 million visitors walked through those gates annually, pouring money into a region that had known so much poverty. Scholarships and community hiring programs expanded opportunity for the very people who reminded Dolly of where she came from. Her songs carried hardship, accountability, and emotional truth. Fame amplified them. Time preserved them. Her image looked steady on the outside because her early life had built that strength from the inside out. Kenny Rogers grew up on the other end of the country, but understood the same fundamental lessons. His childhood unfolded in a federal housing project in Houston, Texas, where his father worked as a carpenter and his mother pulled nursing shifts to keep food on the table. Resources were tight, and Kenny learned independence early, working small jobs during his school years to support himself. Those years carved something permanent into his character, a drive toward bigger opportunities that would define his entire career. He performed with local groups throughout his teenage years, honing his voice and his stage presence in clubs and community halls. By the mid-1960s, he had joined the New Christy Minstrels, a popular folk group that gave him national exposure and professional experience. But Kenny wanted more. By 1976, he had broken away to build a solo career, and within a year, he proved his gamble had paid off. His single Lucille climbed to high positions on both country and pop charts in 1977, selling over 2 million copies and establishing him as a crossover artist who could reach audiences beyond traditional country music. The following year, his album The Gambler expanded his reputation as a master of storytelling. His warm baritone voice perfectly suited the songs that unfolded like short films. Career pressure intersects with personal life often. Kenny married 5 times between 1960 and 1997, and most of those relationships ended due to the distance created by relentless touring and mismatched priorities. He discussed these failures honestly in later interviews, emphasizing privacy and personal accountability rather than feeding rumors or pointing fingers. In 1983, he stepped into a recording studio with Dolly Parton to record Islands in the Stream, a song written by Barry Gibb of the Bee Gees. Creative differences surfaced during the sessions, as they often do when strong artists collaborate, but leadership and label representatives managed negotiations calmly. The final track represented a negotiated vocal balance that allowed both voices to shine. It reached #1 on both the country and pop charts, achieving a crossover success that few songs had ever managed. The harmony was not manufactured. It emerged because both artists understood the power of story and the importance of listening to each other. Media outlets tried creating tension around the 1985 award season, searching for drama between two of country music's biggest stars. But both were managing physical recovery during that period. Dolly healed from her hysterectomy, while Kenny dealt with persistent knee pain. Life had slowed them temporarily, and music resumed without division or drama. Kenny managed diabetes privately throughout the 2010s and underwent triple bypass surgery in 2013 to address serious heart problems. He paused touring and spoke publicly about recovery and reflection, focusing on honesty and accountability in his interviews. No spectacle defined this chapter of his life. He simply did the work of getting better. Fatherhood arrived unexpectedly when he was 66 years old. His wife, Wanda Miller, gave birth to twin boys through in vitro fertilization, and that decade shifted his entire focus. Touring paused not because his voice failed, but because his priorities had finally clarified. Fatherhood grew louder than any audience ever could. His memoir arrived in 2012, titled Luck or something like it. Within its pages, he shared the pressures of his career, the exhaustion of endless touring, and the personal mistakes he had made along the way. He chose honesty over spectacle, explaining his loneliness without making accusations. The book strengthened the trust of fans who valued accountability and appreciated an artist willing to examine his own life with clear eyes. His musical connection with Dolly remained professional and steady across the decades. They had built something together in that studio in 1983, a creative partnership rooted in mutual respect and shared understanding of what country music could accomplish when artists committed fully to their craft. Kenny launched Dreamcatcher Records to maintain control over his sound and direction, refusing to let industry pressures dilute his vision. His later chart successes continued to carry emotional storytelling into mainstream consciousness, proving that audiences never tired of songs that felt true. In 2012, Kenny privately gifted Dolly a custom guitar as appreciation for their creative partnership. Acts of gratitude, he understood, needed no stage. Their 2017 reunion was not marked by tension or farewell drama. It was a celebration of endurance, consistency, and shared history. A sold-out concert at Bridgestone Arena in Nashville earned staggering ticket demand and grossed over $20 million. Kenny retired after that applause, and Dolly supported the finale with grace. Both protected their health. Both protected their boundaries. Kenny Rogers passed away in 2020, but his voice did not disappear. In 2021, a collection of archived vocals recorded between 2008 and 2011 resurfaced in an album that carried their original tone and warmth. No hologram defined his legacy. Only the sound remained. In 2024, Dolly published a cookbook called Good Looking Cookin', written with help from her sister Rachel Parton George. Among the recipes was Kenny's favorite tortilla dish, made with jalapeno and cheese. Simple food holds profound meaning for people who came from scarcity. Her writing preserved his taste with warmth and precision, a small tribute to a friend and collaborator who had understood the same hunger she carried. Their story connects because it stays human, grounded, and consistent through every season. Creative harmony defined their sound. Personal harmony defined their respect. They walked separate paths that intertwined when the music demanded it, and they supported each other through surgeries and setbacks and the relentless grind of maintaining relevance in an industry that discards artists without sentiment.